Welcome to Module 2. In this module, we are going to discuss building effective presentations using Copilot in PowerPoint. Let's start. For this module, we are going to discuss creating a new presentation. We're going to also discuss enhancing our presentation, and then we're going to put it all together on leveraging an exercise. This exercise is a step that I'm going to provide you that you can try this on your own environment. When we talk about creating presentations, sometimes it gives us a blank. I'm like, oh, I want to create a presentation, but maybe I'm not that creative sometimes. I like to have a little kickstart. And that's exactly where Copilot for PowerPoint is going to help us. So Copilot in PowerPoint is going to help us create that first draft. It really helps us focus. It gives us a critical starting point. You're never going to draft alone again once you begin to use the Copilot in your PowerPoint presentations. So it's going to help you streamline the content. It's going to also look at design possibilities. If I already have a template, I can leverage that template. I can have real-time collaboration with my content. I also can look at integrating data. I can start a conversation and create a presentation from scratch, which is sometimes hard. And I can also bring a presentation from documents. If I have a Word document, I can quickly create a presentation based on that document. So, how do I create an engaging slide with Copilot in PowerPoint? Well, again, I can start from scratch. I can simply have an idea, open a blank canvas, and I can simply say, Copilot, create a presentation based on whatever subject. I can also look at a template. If I have a corporate template that I want to use, I can start from that template. Any of the slides that I create are going to be based on that template. And I can start from a file. If I have a Word file, I can reference that file as well. Now, selecting from, let's say, a group of prompts. Sometimes I don't know exactly which one I want to start. So Copilot for PowerPoint already provides you a selection. You already have pre-created prompts to be able to say, start from a file, start from a fresh idea. And I can then enter my own prompts. I can select, I can simply tell Copilot, create a PowerPoint presentation based on, let's say, solar organizations, solar power organization. Give me some ideas of what I want to do. So here I have some example of some prompts. Create a presentation, let's say, on the benefits of, let's say, remote working. Well, that's right, I work remote all the time. Why not try to create a presentation based on that? So we can leverage various existing prompts or new prompts to be able to do that. We're going to talk about a prompt library later that we have created that provides many of these examples in there. Now, one of the things that I want to be able to do when I create a presentation is be specific, right? So when I create a presentation, I want to be able to tell Copilot, this is how I want you to do. What are the details? I want to be able to focus on summarizing this particular section, or I want to be able to do this based on that content. Let's discuss this in a little more detail. So here's an example. I have a PowerPoint template that I want to be able to use. I can use a Microsoft template that I already created. As you know, when I go into PowerPoint, I can simply select from a large selection of templates. That means whatever slides that I create are going to be based on this template. And now that I have a template, I can begin to create my modules. I can begin to ask Copilot, create a presentation based on, and the content is going to be based on that. I can also use from a file and leverage this presentation. Now, if I have a Microsoft Word document that I created, I can reference that Word document, and I don't need to reference the entire document. I can say, I want you to summarize just the benefit section of this Word document, and I can put a slash. That's how I start my discussion. So I can put a slash that calls for the Word document. Now I can say, create a presentation based on the summary section of this document. Now, speaking notes are also created. When I create my presentation, Copilot will also add the notes fields for me. Now, the way this is going to be created is Copilot is going to interpret the content, create the notes based on that interpretation. It is then going to add the original document. So when you look at the notes field, you're going to have the summarization created by Copilot that was used to create the slides, plus you're going to also have the original content in there. Now, it's important for us to think about this. Imagine that I am a business user and I have a document, maybe my sales analysis, and I want to have insights of that sales analysis. That's a great example for me to use an example of an existing file. If I have files that my teams or I myself have created, I can simply say, Copilot, let's create a presentation based on this, extract only the specific content that I want. Maybe the annual financial overview on this presentation based on that sales analysis. It gives me the insight, and I can break down. I can begin to add additional content as well. Now, once I do this, once I have this creation process done, one of the things that I can do is I can enhance my presentation even more. So, how do I refine and enhance my presentation? Well, again, I can use Copilot for that. I can rewrite the text. I can select specific text on my presentation, or I can say, based on this slide, create another slide, or insert another slide, number 4, for example, for this content. And I can tell Copilot what content that I want. I can also ask to add images. Copilot leverages images. In fact, it leverages insights from that. I can say, create an image to represent something into my slide. And I can also ask Copilot to organize my slides and my summaries. I can ask Copilot to review the slide, make sure they are in order, and if not, well, customize it for me. So we have that option as well. Now, auto rewriting and adding. That's right, I can auto rewrite a slide. One of the first thing that's going to happen when I use the PowerPoint is going to create an outline of my presentation. If I like that outline, I can then create these slides. And I can modify that outline to see my needs. I can add additional content, or I can remove content. I can choose how I want those references to be. And I can also add it based on a specific panes. Maybe I have one pane that I like, others that I don't. I can modify those. We have many examples of prompts for us to use based on that. Now, in terms of adding a slide, I did say I can simply go into a presentation and say, add a new slide, number 4, to represent maybe a new image or a new content. I can summarize that. I can also ask for more details. Rewrite slide number 4 with more details. So a new slide is going to be created using that new detail that I asked for. And of course, adding images, right? As I said, I can simply say add a new image or create a new image to represent, and I can then insert that image into my slide. So when we look at our presentation, we can also summarize our presentation. I can ask Copilot to go through all the slides and simply give me a summary of this presentation. I can also create a new slide with that summary if I wish to do so. If I have a document that I want to summarize or extract content, I can refer to the document in my summary as well. And I can use Copilot, again, in the summaries field outside of the presentation or create a slide based on that. Here are some sample prompts for you to run in those summaries in your presentation. Now, I'm going to take a time to give you a quick demonstration on creating these presentations, editing these presentations, and of course, summarizing them in PowerPoint. Let's get started. So here we are in PowerPoint. Now that I have Copilot in PowerPoint, notice I have an icon. I call this Draft with Copilot. This allows me to create a fresh presentation. I can also create a presentation from a file. I can add new slides, or I can ask Copilot. When I use Ask Copilot, it opens the canvas on the right. It's the same as clicking on the Copilot icon on the menu bar. Now, this conversation that I can have is outside of my slides. I can create content and insert into my slides. So, as an example, we are going to create a new fresh presentation. Let's click on Create a New Presentation. And this is going to be about a project for solar-powered baby strollers. Okay, a project about solar-powered baby strollers. Notice that if I had my presentation, my template, I could use my template. I can say change the design, and I can pick a design if I already have a master template for my organization. In this example, I'm going to say no. Let's go ahead and execute. Now, Copilot is thinking about what I asked for and is going to give me some suggestions of topics in this presentation. Notice that I have my introduction, I have the design, the technology, the process, and I have the order. I can modify the order by simply dragging and dropping the selection in the order that I want. That's going to be great. If I like the outline that I received, I can simply say, go ahead and generate the slides. I can also add additional slides if I want to. But for now, I'm going to say, go ahead and generate these slides. Now, Copilot is doing this for me, generating the visuals, creating the images, and also creating the notes field. So I have an idea for a product, an opportunity, a project. I can begin to ask Copilot to instantly give that idea some fruition. I can begin to see that now. And this is why I mentioned that you will never draft alone again. So here it is. I can begin to see my slides being created. Once the slides are done, I will be able to work with them. I can view the images, view the content, change the content any way that I can see for my needs. There we go. So these are the slides. Notice that they are not complete yet. I have not yet made any changes. Down here it says keep or delete. Notice I have the little trash can. It says delete that. That means the slides are not going to be created. Or if I say keep, then the slides are going to be kept. Do I like them? I do. So I'm going to say go ahead and keep these slides. Now, if I look into my configuration, I have the introduction slides, and down below, let's take a look. I have my, there it is. I also have my notes fields. And because I didn't start this slide from a document, these are fresh notes. Now, let's say, for example, that I want to start a presentation from an existing document. Well, I could very well say that this is a new document and start from it a new presentation. But I'm not going to. We are going to create a document in a different location. So let's try that. Let's put this aside for a moment. Let's open up our browser. And in the browser, we are going to use Copilot Chat to create a document for us. I'm going to access Copilot by clicking on the icon in my browser. And we are going to be discussing this later today. Now, how do I create a new document from here? Well, I'm going to say, well, Copilot, create a proposal for a new project for a solar-powered baby stroller. All right. So the same thing I saw in the presentation, but now I'm asking Copilot to create this document for me. There it is. It's putting all the pieces together for my baby stroller project. It has the sections in there. It has the project information. I have the objective. I could extend this. We're going to do that later when we talk about the chat. But for now, I'm going to simply say, create a Word document, docx of this proposal. So my document is going to be created right away. And I can use this document for my presentation. That's right. Once I have the document created, I can point to that document and have a presentation created. Is that possible? Yes, here it is. That is my document. So let's open this document. And this is going to be a Word document that we just created. Here it is. That is my project plan. I have the objectives, the scope, the timeline, Perfect. Now I'm going to save this document so I can use in a presentation. So let's save it. I did mention that my documents need to be on OneDrive. So we're going to save as, and I'm going to put this document in my class directory. So let's choose the Microsoft 4018, and let's call docs. And here it is, solar-powered baby stroller proposal. Save it. Now this is going to take a couple seconds for this document to synchronize in my OneDrive. So to expedite this, I'm going to take a copy of the link to my document. So I'm going to go ahead and say, copy a link. Here it is. This basically expedites this process. Link is copied. Now I can go back into my presentation, and we are going to create a new presentation. So let's say File, New. This time I'm going to choose a Microsoft Standard template. There it is. Now that I have a presentation, I'm going to say create a new presentation based on a file. And here it is. The slash is there. We did mention I have to use the slash, the forward slash, and I can paste the link to my document. Here it is, solar-powered baby stroller proposal. So my presentation is going to be based on this document. I could also say only a particular section of the document, but for now, I am going to use the entire document. Let's go ahead and do it. There it is. So similar to what we saw before, Copilot is going to generate a presentation. This time, it's going to give me the outline for all the sections, and it's going to give me a choice, just as I saw before, to be able to save or generate the presentation or not. So let's go ahead and say, I like the outline. I like everything that's in here, or the objectives. Let's go ahead and say, generate the presentation. And within a few seconds, we have a brand new presentation that is designed from a particular document. Now that our presentation has been created, here it is. Notice we talked about the governance, the sensitivity. One of the important things that we need to remember when we work with Copilot is that it is our AI assistant, which means if we have access to the document, Copilot is going to have access to the documents. If I don't have access, Copilot will not have access. This is important, which means the sensitivity that we apply to these documents, if it is secret, if it is public, it's going to also be applied when we create the presentation by Copilot. Now, this is the presentation. Do I want it? Yes, I'm going to say keep it. Now my presentation is going to be created. There it is. So now I have my slides and they are ready to be used. Let's go ahead into view mode, and I can go also into presentation mode. Now, notice here on the bottom, I have the notes field. So I am going to have a content that was originally provided, and I'm going to have the new content that is generated by Copilot. So the content of the presentation, as we mentioned, is that interpretation from what Copilot extracted from that document. Now that I have my presentation, I did say I can modify a little bit. Maybe I don't like that image. I want to create another image. I can very well open up Copilot and say, create a new image to represent or for this introduction of my project, but make it a little more futuristic. Maybe I want something a little more elaborate in my content. So let's try that. I'm going to say, instead of simply summarize my presentation, which we mentioned I can summarize my entire presentation now, we are going to ask Copilot to create a new image for slide 4. Make it more futuristic and appealing. I want it more futuristic and appealing, this new image. So I can replace that image that's in there. So now what Copilot is going to do, it is going to open Designer and is going to propose 4 options of images that I can select. If I like the image, I can simply click on it and say Edit to my presentation. So within a few seconds, we are going to have our image generated. Also notice that when I open up my Copilot on the right-hand side by leveraging the toolbar, I already have some examples of prompts in there. Create a presentation about, as I did on the first one. I also have, speak with Copilot about document insights. Maybe I want to extract insights, add slides about, maybe there's one slide that I want to add, we'll see that. And also, maybe I want to summarize this presentation. Oh, here it is. I have my images that I want to be able to use. I like this particular one, image number 4, and I can say insert. Now it places the image inside of the slide. It doesn't replace that image per se, because I ask, just generate an image for me. One thing that I can do is I can cut that image and I can replace the image from clipboard, right? This is one way for me to generate new images. Now, what if I want to add another slide to my presentation? I can put my mouse here on, let's say, the timeline, and I can say, let's insert a couple slides about, and because my Copilot, as we mentioned, in my organization, Copilot here is connected or grounded on the web as well. So on the right-hand side, if I notice I have this symbol, Manage Content Preferences, notice that the web content is enabled, which means I can have a conversation also connected to the web. So what if I want a SWOT analysis of my competition in this space? I could ask for that. Create a slide with a SWOT analysis of the top 3 competitors. So now Copilot is going to go out, look at the competitors in this space, if there is any, and then it's going to create a brand new slide. Here's our slide on the SWOT analysis. It created a slide based on the top 3, we call it top 3 competitors in that space. So again, as we did before, I can modify my content. I can change the image. I can bring additional content. I can summarize my presentation. This makes me a lot more agile. I can be a lot more creative, and it saves me tremendous amount of time. Now that we had a demonstration on how Copilot works in PowerPoint, I know how to create new presentation, create presentation from a file, and then be able to modify my presentation, beautify my presentation, if I may say. I have an exercise for you. This exercise is something that you can try at your own pace, in your own environment. For this, you're going to have a number of steps on your exercise. First, you're going to create a presentation from a document. Number 2, you're going to ask Copilot to create, in this case, an icebreaker slide for your presentation. Number 3, you're going to insert an image, and then you're going to edit and, of course, test that. Number 5, you are going to organize the presentation. Maybe there's an order in which you want the presentation to be, so you can ask Copilot to change that order. And then, of course, optional step number 6, you want to send a draft of that for review. Okay? So this is going to be something for you to try as you move along on your experience with Copilot for your PowerPoint. Now it's time for a knowledge check. Very similar to what we see on the first module, we have a prompt for you to try with your knowledge check. How do I exercise this prompt? Again, I can open up Copilot in my browser. I can open up Copilot in Teams. We'll talk more about this later. And I can exercise this prompt. And it's going to generate multiple choice questions for you, 3 of them, related to Microsoft 365 Copilot in PowerPoint, how it works, and also the presentation, putting it all together. It's going to ask you one question at a time, give you a brief explanation, and then it is going to show you the correct answer and ask the next questions. So I hope you enjoy exercising this prompt as you continue your learning as well. And this And this brings us to the end of this module. In this module number 2, we had an opportunity to look at drafting new presentations. We created a presentation from scratch, started fresh. We also created a presentation from an existing file. Then we added the presentation. I added new content, changed the image. We also modified that. So now we can begin to look at organizing, creating, drafting, be a lot more agile and expressive as we begin to deploy Copilot and begin to use that with your PowerPoint for your presentation. Again, you will never draft alone again.